informative and contains my opinion and understanding of the subject matter. Viewer discretion is advised.
Hi everyone, welcome. It would have helped if I would have added myself to the stage. I started talking and was like, where am I? So I have a couple of people in here already. Hi, oh, look a squirrel. That literally reminds me of my ADHD, so that's actually pretty funny. So I was gonna record a few things and then I was like, why don't I just go live? Because I realized there wasn't really many people live unless I just was seeing things, but I figured, why not just do this live? And if anybody wants to do what I'm doing, you can. So let me present and share my screen. How's everybody doing? As people come in, I'll get my screen going. Oh, hold on, here we go. So I put together a little presentation about Bryan Kohberger. All right, so let me tell you what I did. All right, here we go. Okay, so I will make that bigger so you guys could see it, but let me just explain what I'm doing first. So what I did was I was looking and I noticed that that there was a lot of similarities. Not only, first of all, can you guys hear me okay? I should probably have checked that first. Let me just make sure you guys can hear me okay first. So while I'm waiting to see if you guys could hear me, hopefully somebody will let me know in a minute. But oh, look, a squirrel. Can you hear me? Hopefully you can. Oh, girl, you're fine. Thanks. Hi, CeeLaw. You can't watch now, but you'll watch the replay and you can hear me. Thank you so much. I appreciate that so much. I'm just going to be presenting some stuff. So I put some stuff together that compares. I know that when I'm on other people's channels that I have to pretty much go with what they're going with. Obviously, it's their show. So I always want to talk about like the psychology part. So I figured, why not just put something together on my own and go live? And if anybody shows up, they do. And if not, I just tape it for a later presentation. So let me just go over to here. I'm going to make this bigger. Hold on, let's see. All right, get rid of the ribbon. Oh, I just made it bigger. That was worse. All right. I don't know what's happening right now, of course, when I go live. Hold on, let me try to bring it up this way. This might be easier. But I have really cool stuff. I made all kinds of like APA slides, stuff like that. So by pulling this up, I'll just say hi to everybody still. It's now making me sign back in. None of this stuff ever happens until you're trying to go live. And then all that stuff wants to happen. It's telling me that I'm signed into my Rowan account, and I'm definitely not. I graduated. I definitely am not signed into my Rowan account. All right, show tabs only. Well, oh, that helped. There we go. I can work with this, and then I can make it bigger. There we go. See, we'll make this work. I wonder if I could hide this. No, I'm just going to leave it the way that it is. View. Oh, look, I could do that at 100%. Let's see, is this going to make it bigger? Oh, it did, you guys. Look at that. All right, awesome. And then I could just do this, make it bigger that way. All right, now let me see what it looks like on your end. Oh, there we go. We see a little bit better. Hi, Truth. I missed you this week. I haven't really been on, so I missed you. I'm going to go through some of this stuff. I just made this bigger, which then made everything else bigger. I don't know what's happening, of course. When I want to go live, that happens. It's on like accessibility mode or something. I'm not sure. What if I download it as a PDF? I made like all kinds of notes, you guys. So let's see what happens. Maybe this will make it bigger. Oh, it does. Okay, so I'm going to the screen and share no one, and then we're going to get going. Oh, that's exciting. I found it. It only took me like 20 minutes, but I found it. All right, here we go. So how's everyone doing today? Is everybody good? I know I already asked that. I apologize. Really? I had all of this prepared. Okay, here we go. I don't know what. Oh, there we go. Now it's letting me share it. It wouldn't let me share it first. I'm like, what is happening? All right, so hopefully this turns out okay. Here we go. I'm just going to make this bigger over here. Now I'm going to see. I think you guys could all see. Let's get into it. Okay, so I can't see at the moment. Let's see. Truth. Oh, I almost just banned you, and I didn't mean to do that. I meant to see if I could make you like a mod or whatever so that you can look at chat, and I actually just almost blocked you, and I didn't mean to do that. Okay, well, I guess we're going to figure that out another time because it's not letting me do it here. But let me just get back to this, and I'm going to go through this. And again, hopefully you guys enjoy what I put together. So I was looking at some of the parallels. So first I looked at Bryan Kohberger and Ted Bundy. Okay, so we know that Bryan Kohberger is alleged and that Ted Bundy is convicted. So that was one of the main differences here. So of course we know that Bryan is considered innocent until proven guilty in a court of law. I have to put that out there. But let's look at some of their profile settings. Okay, so we have Ted Bundy. Ted Bundy targeted young women, many of whom shared physical similarities. So things like they all had long, dark hair that was parted in the middle. So that was one of the big things. Even BTK had a specific woman that he looked for, so much so that I'll never forget reading his wife in the book, Nightmare in Wichita, I believe it's called. Yes, it is. His wife apparently had her hair dyed and cut in a way that like the BTK killer did not find attractive, just to lessen her chances of becoming a victim of this horrible person who she later finds out is her husband. So there is a thing to what we call a prototype or somebody that the perpetrator is going after, if you will. Okay, so for Kohberger, we believe that his alleged victims are also young college students living near a university campus in a quiet college town environment. So both of them preyed on, if again, this is all alleged, on college females. So in both cases, they involved off-campus student housing and an attack during the night, which added to the eerie similarity between both of them. Also keep in mind that Bryan Kohberger's mom, and I actually was able to read some of it today. I couldn't get my hands on the whole thing, or I would have brought it into the stream tonight. Maybe I'll do that next time. But his mom definitely wrote an entire op-ed about the DP and about how she is not for it and how, you know, the state doing it to somebody doesn't make it any better than the person who did it themselves and so on and so forth. So I thought that that was really ironic that she says all of that. And I don't know. Oh, Aunt Viv's here. Hi, Aunt Viv. That she says all of that. So I don't know. I think it's ironic that now, and I also know that she has like an affinity with Ted Bundy. If you guys saw the basement, I don't know if it's his real basement, but if it is, it's, what's the name of it, Truth? Mount Rainier, or I'm saying that wrong, but it's where Ted Bundy's victim, his last victim, was found. And if it is Bryan Kohberger's basement, there's an entire mural of it with gnomes in the front. And back at the beginning with Inside Looking and stuff, I believe it was Inside Looking, they put like a little thing out there and it said something about gnomes, which was really weird. So I don't know, but there's a lot that, you know, you see similarities here. So keep going with this. As far as their academic ties to criminology, so Bundy studied psychology and so did Bryan Kohberger. So Bryan Kohberger gets his associate's degree in psychology and then goes on to get his master's degree in criminology and then goes for a PhD as a criminology student at Washington State University. So he had a fascination with the criminal mind. He had previously posted questions on Reddit. Do you guys remember his Reddit post? That was about, which I'm hearing everybody talk about now. So all of y'all remember that that was one of the very first things that I talked about was, meanwhile, I always was like, I'll never be that creator's like, that's like, you heard it here first, but everybody's talking about that survey now and its validity and reliability. So I can't wait to see what DeSales University, which is another weird thing. I should go grab it real quick, but I won't. But over there, my daughter just got a letter from DeSales University for her to attend college there. I was like, oh my God. So, but she got a lot of them. But that just happened to be one of them. And I was like, okay. That was like, I'm just going live. So then we also have, an eerier, calm demeanor that they both have. So Bundy was known for being charming, articulate, and calm, often manipulating others with ease. Reports of Kohberger's behavior post-arrest described him as silent, observant, and calm, which some saw as unsettling given the charges. So this is what I wanted to ask you guys real quick. That's actually a really good, this is a really good comment. So they're all speculating, but hey, Mom, will you see me now that I'm like Ted? I can't believe you said that. That's so funny, right? Not funny, but it's crazy because I always say, do you see me now? I have serious theories about that survey too. Oh, I want to hear all about it, Squirrel. I want to hear everything. So I don't know, email me or something or write it in the comments. I want to hear what you have to say too, or anybody else for that matter. Again, that survey was put out on Reddit 1 month before he graduated. I just don't know how valid and reliable results from a survey that quickly could be. The other thing I wanted to say was, and I didn't know if anybody else hears anything different, please let me know in the comments, but I was watching I read a book. I don't even want to say what book it was because I'm not positive, but I read a book on this case already, and I don't know how many of them are out there. But they said in the book that after the crimes that Bryan went to like a doctor's appointment and stuff that he had scheduled, which again, that doesn't say anything, obviously. But apparently the people at the doctor's appointment said that he was like very charming and talkative and so on and so forth. So I kind of got different opinions about what he was like after the crime. So then I was thinking about it and I'm like, well, what can make sense of this? And the only thing I could think of is that in a setting like the doctor's, right, where he's not at school or work. And again, you have to remember, just like me, the work is the school, right? So when he wasn't in that environment, people were reporting him as being more charming and stuff. And this was after the crime. But then the people from school were the ones that said that he was more quiet, calm, and like watching, stuff like that. So I thought about it and I'm like, well, which one of these are true? Was he more quiet or was he more? And then I was like, wait, maybe both could be true. When you lack an identity, you guys, it's easy, not easy, but yeah, it's a little bit easier to just slip into different hats, if you will. So it could be possible that at, the doctor's office, he was very charming and talkative. Who knows? Maybe the people there made him feel, I don't know, safe or whatever the case may be. And then at school, you have to remember he's going to school for criminology. So this case was so close to the school, I'm assuming that people wanted to talk about it, right? So with that being said, and they do say that people did want to talk about it. So maybe that's why he was quiet, because maybe, what do you guys think? But I'm thinking can't both be true depending on where he was. I don't know about you, but depending on where I'm at, like I could be bitching 1 minute and happy the next, and that just might make me a little bit crazy, but whatever. So that's why I'm asking. So True says, I think he acted that way at the doctor's office because that setting, yes, he's not the smartest. Truth gets an A. All right, Truth, you get an A for this one. So True says, I think he acted that way at the doctor's office because in that setting, he was not the smartest person in the room and he knew it. And that, I never thought of that. That is such a good point. When you go to see the doctor, right, you're going to see Dr. So-and-so. He was going to get a doctorate degree, but in that particular setting, he wasn't the smartest person in the room. In the other ones, I wonder if he still thought, though, that he was like, as smart as the doctor, but he just didn't have the qualifications. That would be interesting. But that's a really, really good point, Truth. All right, let's see. Oh, look, a squirrel says, speculating. He finally embraced his true self and gained his identity. Oh, hell right, he did. That's exactly what happened. And I don't know if you saw my Do They See Me Now video, but if you haven't, oh, look, a squirrel, after this is done, you should watch it, because I take you through his entire upbringing up until and after the crimes even. And you literally see that he's tried so many different things in his life that he's tried to gain people's respect and attention for. And it was almost as if no matter what he tried, he never felt like he either fit the part or that he was good enough in that moment. So I do think that these crimes 100% gave him an identity. And another big reason is because the lives that he took, they all had very strong identities. So unfortunately, by taking somebody's life who has a strong identity, you now become the person that took that person's life, which now gains you an identity. So I think that was a great speculation, if you will, as far as speculating, because I totally agree with that. Not that what I think is right. I'm just saying I agree with you. So back to this real quick. So social detachment and narcissism. So Bundy was a narcissist and manipulative. So traits common also in psychopathy or antisocial personality. Kohberger has been described by former classmates as socially awkward, intensely analytical, and possibly narcissistic, though no formal psychological profile has been released publicly. So I think this is just really important real quick to speak on, because I agree. I believe that although he was considered a mass murderer, that he has the same qualities or traits as a serial killer. I do agree with that. But here, again, I think it's important that although Kohberger has not been diagnosed as a narcissistic or antisocial or psychopathy, if you will, I do think that it's important that we look at that. Why? Well, first of all, the defense doesn't want us to say the word psychopathy and stuff like that in the trial. So why would that be, right? So that just says to me that if you're fighting, trying to make a sure that we can't say those words in court, then does that mean that you're afraid that if they do an outside psychological evaluation that you might find something different from what the defense found, which was autism, obsessive compulsive disorder, and what was the third one? It was it was something that you get when you're like really young. I don't know why it's on the tip of my tongue. I'll think of it in a minute. But if anybody remembers, if you let me know. Yeah, DCD. I just can't think of hands for it at the moment. I know. Duh. Developmental coordination disorder. I just had to think about that for a second. I was having an ADHD moment. Developmental coordination disorder. And again, that's a disorder of childhood and something that you usually grow out of. So I think that one is bullshit altogether. I feel like by adding that, they almost took away credibility from the other two diagnoses, because if I were hired and given enough money, and again, not for this case, I would never do it here, but if you could give me enough money for me, if I had to make an argument for why he does have OCD or autism, I could make the argument, but again, I would do so knowing that I didn't truly believe that, right? So they're both disorders that you usually get diagnosed in a lot sooner than at 34. So, and we believe that this was his first actual diagnosis. So whether people called him OCD before, whether he called himself OCD, whatever the case may be, this was, from what we've been told, the first real diagnoses that he's got. So again, that's another reason I have a problem with it. So, all right, let's keep going. So murder method and mobility. So Bundy often moved between states and used stealth to gain access to his victims. Kohberger allegedly drove 10 miles to university to the scene of the crime in the middle of the night, suggesting a planned and premeditated act, if true. So I totally agree with that. I think both of them were premeditated. Again, if he is found guilty. Okay, so now this is where I go a little step further. when I was on Daniel's show, the Drunk Turkey Show, he brought up American Psycho, okay? And he was saying that he had just watched American Psycho and that he saw a lot of similarities between Kohberger and the character in American Psycho. So I was like, Bateman is his name. So I was like, wait, really? So I thought about it and I said, why don't I put together something that compares Kohberger, who's alleged, Bundy, who's convicted, and Bateman, who's fictional. And I figured that would be a pretty cool thing to like look at the three and see how they relate. So hold on, let me get to that real quick. I need a drink of water and I don't want to drink on the screen. Okay, I'm back. Sorry, I just need to take a sip of water. Okay, so let's look at this. So what I did was, so I looked at first looking at the intelligence. So Bateman in the movie is highly intelligent. He's controlled. He's detached. And these are all traits that can be seen in Kohberger's analytical academic approach to criminology. Kohberger reported interest in criminal behavior and the internal world of criminals, meaning that their internal working model, how they feel about themselves, things like that, may suggest a clinical curiosity that also aligns with Bateman's detached observational nature. I think this is important to point out because if I am correct in this analytical academic approach that I believe Kohberger has, that would mean that he probably also used that same thought process during the commission of the crime, right? So he would have seen this crime as a science and therefore something that he can participate in, have a methodology for, the whole thing, right? So let's keep going. So when it comes to things like dual lives, I looked into this as well. So at first I'm just comparing Bateman and Kohberger now. I already did Ted Bundy and Kohberger, and then I'm going to tie them all together. So Bateman leads a double life. So he's a public persona and he's a secretly homicidal public persona, okay? And again, this is a fictional character. When comparing him to an alleged real person, Kohberger, if guilty, this would represent a similar duality. So criminology student by day, alleged killer by night. So the contradiction between his academic focus on crime and then being charged with committing a brutal crime adds to the American Psycho comparison, in my opinion, okay? Let's look at obsession with control. So not obsessions, but obsession with control. So Bateman's crimes were about control and domination. And I don't know if you guys remember, but I've been talking about control and domination with Kohberger, since the beginning. So Bateman often was methodical and premeditated. The Idaho murders, based on a probable cause affidavit, also appears to have involved planning, attacking, and stalking behavior, suggesting a desire for control. So again, we see more commonalities. I actually gave Daniel a huge compliment for making this connection because once I watched the movie and then made my comparison charts, there's a lot more in common there than you would think. So what does that say to me as a therapist if I put a therapist hat on? That says to me that there's a possibility, and again, this is my opinion, speculating, that Bryan lacks such an identity that he tried to find an identity in characters that he watched on TV or in the movies or in songs. I don't know if that sounds plausible to anyone, but think about it. Think about the childhood movies that you watched growing up, or even think about like the, reality series and stuff that you've ever watched. Oh, hello there. Thank you for joining us. But think about all those things, right? How many times do you see things where, I missed the thing that I was trying to highlight. Hi, Coca-Cola. I was trying to say hi to you. But yeah, so Truth and look, a scroll both agree. So I do think that there is something to watching movies or films and things like that, and even shows. Even if you identify with different music, I identify with all different types of music. It depends on what type of day I'm in that day. But the same thing, right? When you go to watch TV, it depends on what you're into that day. A lot of us keep coming back to the true crime thing, but, I'm sure there's other stuff that you watch too. Truth says, I think he wanted to be the professor version of Mr. Brooks. know, I still have to watch it. I literally truth work a million hours a week, and on my very first second of my own time, I decided to jump into a live instead of like watch a movie or do something fun for me. But this is fun for me. I don't know. I enjoy this. So, all right, so let's look at caution when comparisons. So while these comparisons are compelling and can provide some psychological context, it's crucial to remember that Kohberger has not been convicted of a crime. He's currently presumed innocent. Bundy is a confirmed serial killer, while Kohberger is accused of a single, although it's a quadruple, act of violence. It all happened within one sitting, which would make him a mass murderer. Bateman is fictional, and while he embodies many traits of psychopathy, applying a fictional lens to real-life crime should be done carefully. So again, I wanted to put that out there so people know that I am doing this in a way that I want to be responsible about it, but I think that it was also really interesting that Daniel picked up on that. So let's see. What do we have next? So next, let's talk about, let me see if I have any of my, oh yeah, I do. They're all in here, my comparisons. All right, so let me go back a little bit. I'll go through this part a little bit quicker. So looking at crime comparisons. So antisocial personality disorder, just to give you a brief overview, is that disregard for others' rights that we've talked about before. Think of the word antisocial, so anti-society. If you're antisocial, another person's personal space, their rights, boundaries, things like that, none of that really matters. You have a disregard for that. There's a lack of empathy and remorse, which is why these people will commit this crime over and over again. They don't feel remorse or, the guilt that you might think that they would feel for seeing all of their loved ones on TV crying and looking, none of that brings that type of guilt that would be like, oh my gosh, what was I thinking? If anything, it feeds the ego. And we'll get into that more when we do narcissistic. And then we have deceitfulness, impulsivity, and aggression. That's another huge part of antisocial personality disorder. It often overlaps with psychopathy. So let me just tell you that psychopathy is not really in the DSM-5 text revision, meaning that it's not technically a disorder. However, it is synonymous pretty much with antisocial personality disorder. It's just the general public refers to it as a psychopath. So that's where that comes in at. But in that sense, when we talk about psychopathy in social realms, this would include emotional detachment, charm, and calculated manipulation, which I don't know in Kohberger because I just don't have enough information to say that confidently. So let's go into narcissistic personality disorder. And if anybody has any questions, do this. So hi, Lucy. Hi, Harlot Oscara. Oh, I'm so excited. Texas is here. Look at all these people here. You guys, I love you. So do this. If anyone, hey, kid. Oh, I love being called kiddo. It makes me feel like I'm so young. But if anybody has a question for me, like it's a subject or any of this, maybe put like an emoji or a couple stars first so that I know to look for that specific thing because I'm switching back and forth between screens. Hopefully someday I have enough money that I can have many screens and better equipment. Well, we'll see. We have to use what we have for right now, So here we go. So let's talk about narcissistic personality. This is just a general overview, and then we could talk about these things more when we go to my comparison charts. So with narcissistic personality disorder, this is that grandiose self-image, the need for admiration. They also have a lack of empathy. There's arrogance and entitlement. And this can overlap with antisocial personality disorder, especially if you have a malignant narcissist, which again, malignant narcissist goes with that social term that we use more in society. I feel like I've gone over narcissism a whole lot. So if anybody has questions about narcissism, please feel free to do so. I also have a short that I put together about narcissism, about narcissistic relationships. It's 2 minutes. I think I'm going to be putting more stuff out like that because I've come to realize that there's a lot more people that are victims of narcissistic abuse than I ever imagined. So whether you're the child of, the sibling of, the spouse or girlfriend, boyfriend of, there's so many more people out there that have dealt with a narcissist than I ever thought. And I don't know if people realize with narcissistic abuse comes like long-term treatment for many people because it's a lot to get through. Okay, so with narcissistic personality, I just wanted to go over that real quick. And now let me just go over, only because I bring it up, let's go over real quick schizoid or schizotypal personality traits. So schizoid is emotional coldness, preference for solitude. So this person doesn't need friends, the person with schizoid. And then schizotypal, odd beliefs, eccentric behavior, social anxiety, and paranoia. For the record, I do not see schizotypal in Bryan Kohberger. I just wanted to show you because there are two different personality disorders that sound similar, schizoid and schizotypal, and I don't want people to confuse them. I do think, however, that Bryan Kohberger does have schizoid traits, and that would be that emotional coldness and preference for solitude. I don't know if you guys remember, but his dad went out when he first went out there, and he talked to that neighbor and said, like, can you just look out for my son? Like maybe, hang, like almost tried to make him a friend. And the thing is that if Bryan really wanted a friend, he's a grown-ass man. He can make, he could say hi to people. I think it was more that he didn't have a need for friends. And when he did try to have friends in the past, they never seem to last. So there's no friend from like fourth grade that's come out to talk about him, right? You can argue that a lot of his friends, passed away due to drugs and stuff. A lot of all of our friends and family members have died from the opioid epidemic and things like that. However, even with all that being said, I think most of us have somebody out there, even if it was one of us from online, that could go out, and, God forbid anything happened to me. I would hope that at least, the people that are here tonight know me well enough to at least speak a little bit on my behalf after that you've seen just from the past, 2 months that I've been around. So we don't even have that for him, right? So nobody's even like, I really don't know this dude, but we were in an online community. Nothing. We have nothing, you guys. So that says a lot to me. That says to me that it's not necessarily that he couldn't make friends, but that he didn't find a need for them. Okay. So let's we're going to take each one of these people and we're going to look at them again real quick. So again, just for people that are just tuning in, we're looking at a real convicted Ted Bundy, an alleged Kohberger, and then a fictional character, Bateman, and we're going to compare them. So when it comes to Ted Bundy, let's look at the one that we know is real, right? So not real, but has been convicted. So we definitely know that he had psychopathy or antisocial personality disorder and narcissism. So Ted Bundy is a confirmed serial killer. He targeted young college women. He was charismatic, manipulative, and calculating, which is a little bit different than Bryan Kohberger, the charismatic part. So there are many similarities between Bryan and Bundy, but there are a lot of things that are not similar. And one of them is that charisma. Now, if it is true that he was charismatic at the doctor's appointment, then we might find out something different. But as of right now, from what I know, nobody has, at least not that I've seen, has characterized Bryan as being charismatic. So just meaning that, this is that person that even if you don't like them, you like them type thing. They're usually the person that when they walk in the room, everybody stops and looks at them. Everybody wants to be their friend. Think about it. Ted Bundy would fake illness, or not illnesses. He would fake injuries, drop books, and then have people help him, thinking he would wobble over his crutches trying to pick up his books, and then somebody would run over to grab them for him, and a lot of the times they would be like, where are you going? Do you want me to help you? And then that's how it happened. And I have to be honest with you, my daughter, she's going to kill me. I hope she's not listening, but she watched the movie about Ted Bundy, and of course it's of course it's a Hollywood actor playing Ted Bundy, but I think they did a good job of showing his charisma. And so that made her look at some of the real life stuff that we have of Ted Bundy. And she said to me, Mom, I have to be completely honest, knowing what I know now, obviously I never would do that with him or anybody ever. But she's like, there might have been a time in my life where I would have just thought I was doing like the right thing and helping somebody by picking up their books and walking into their car with them. She's like, but with Ted Bundy, he like was, I think she used the word hot. I wanted to vomit. I was like, are you kidding me right now? But again, she said not knowing what he did. I could see why somebody would offer to bring his books back. He didn't look like, I think that's what she said. He didn't look like somebody that you would be scared of. And I think if you guys get anything from this today, one of the biggest things I want you to take away from this is that a killer doesn't look like anything different than you or I. Okay. So I promise you that. So I don't know what people think in their head when they think of a killer. Maybe they think of somebody more monstrous or, I don't know, like creep looking ish, which I guess you could say Kohberger has got that creep vibe, but you could also say that people also think that he is attractive as well because he's also getting love letters. So, but that's a whole different story. We'll talk about that another time. So let me just look at a couple of these real quick. So I haven't watched American Psycho in a while. Oh, me either. And I went back and saw it, Harlot, and I was like, wow. So if you do get an opportunity though to watch it, you should if you can, because I think you're going to watch it the second time in a different way, if that makes sense. That's what I did. I watched it with that whole Bryan Kohberger in mind. And as you say, you thought of him when you saw that selfie. A lot of people did. I saw it a couple of years after the release, a long time ago. Yeah, you have to watch it, Lucy. It's clear, and so it's clear to so many that it had those parallels. Absolutely, absolutely. Yeah, so they never do. So, okay, so Corey, of course Corey says serial killers never do. They look normal. That's right, because Corey, you are serial. No, I'm just kidding. I love you, Corey. Thank you for being here. I always mess with Corey. He's not a serial killer. He's like the most lovable student in the whole world. And I have true love for my students. The fact that they would even come on here on a Friday night and hang out with me after seeing me all week is just amazing. I love that. So thank you, Corey. Okay, so, oh wait, Lucy read the book? I need to read the book. Those big beady eyes, Texas Ranger says. So did you guys notice though with the eyes that there's some pictures where it doesn't look like he has blue eyes? And truth, is that from, or anybody that knows, is that from dilated pupils, I would think? I don't know. Harlot wishes she could take my class. Corey, what would you tell Harlot or anybody in here? How would you describe me as a teacher? Because I am a little bit different as a teacher, you guys, than I am here. I'm 100% myself at work. My students get the good, the bad, the everything. And I think that because of that, I have such a good relationship with my students. Of course, one that has boundaries, but a very good relationship. So let's see. Lucy Day says, it was my partner's favorite book. Really? She had a master's in, I don't like the word had, in lit crit. Oh, I never could really understand that. Oh, wait, she had a master's in, is that literacy? But yeah, so anyway, when talking about Bundy and Kohberger, again, we're going to see a lot of similarities, but there are differences. With Bundy, again, real quick, so he studied psychology like Kohberger. He had no remorse for his victims, like allegedly Kohberger, often returned to the crime scenes. If Bryan Kohberger's found guilty, he did the same thing, so they have his car there. I don't know if any of you saw it, and I don't know that it's Bryan Kohberger's car, but I was watching it was something random. It was like the next video that came on YouTube, and it was one in the background. This was like the other day, and it was from in the very, very beginning. And it was like a News Nation clip, and it's Brian Etten. I think that's how you say his name. I'm sorry if I got that wrong. But he's talking, and right behind him you see a white Elantra go by, and I'm like, oh my gosh, did anybody see that? The person in the video obviously pointed out, which is why I saw it. But after I saw it, I was like, oh my gosh, could you imagine if that was him then too? That was like the next day. But we do know that before he took that picture of himself at 10:30, that he had gone home, cleaned up or whatever he had to do, came back to the scene, and then was home again, showered and everything by 10:30. So he, like Bundy, went back to the scene. This is very normal for somebody in this situation to do. There's reasons for it, although a lot of people think that it might have been because he knew that he left the sheath behind and that he had to go back and get the sheath. I think that it's more likely that he went back because he wanted to see the horror that he caused. I think he thought that by the time he went, at least be police there, that, you know, you would see people outside. There was things. So I wonder how that must have made him feel in those few minutes that he sat there watching, you know, because not only did nothing happen yet, but he went home, took a shower, took that picture, and that picture was at 10:30 a.m. The cops weren't even called till noon. So there was still a whole hour and a half after that picture was taken before anything occurred. So again, in that picture, he looks pretty happy about whatever it is he's being happy about at the moment. So, you know, keep that in mind. So Ted Bundy did represent himself in court. He craved control and attention. So with Bryan, I do believe he craves control and even attention, but not the same attention, if that makes sense. So with Bundy, I think he wanted like all eyes on him and him being the one that was like the actor, if you not actor, that's the wrong word, the person that everybody's eyes are on that's like, you know, playing the role of the lawyer. He was going to school for law for a little bit. But I believe that, and you see this now with Lori Daybell, right? I believe the trial started today or to start, I don't know, Monday, but she is defending herself in court. And I don't know if anybody's watched some of these pre-trial hearings, but she's really confident in herself. Like I think she thinks that she obviously can do a better job than somebody else could do for her. She was already found guilty. I don't know, maybe in her head, she's like, what do I have to lose? I don't know. But it isn't abnormal for somebody that's narcissistic and even antisocial to think that it's almost like, let me just talk to them, you guys. Like I can talk my way out of it, if you will. So I'm not surprised that Bundy tried to represent himself. Okay. So likely traits for Bundy: antisocial personality disorder, psychopathy. So high hair checklist score. That's the one that would be used for the psychopathy, and the narcissistic personality disorder traits. Okay, so traits for that. So keep that in mind. Once one says traits. So we know that he had antisocial personality disorder. One thing I will say about this, you can't get diagnosed with any of these personality disorders until you're over 18. So why is that? Because our brain and everything else is developing so rapidly. Your brain's not done developing until you're about 24, 25. And the part of the brain that develops last is your prefrontal cortex, and that's the part of the brain that we use for decision making, impulse control, problem solving, all of those things. So we can't diagnose a lot of disorders until 18, and personality disorders is one of them. However, one of the things that we look for when diagnosing antisocial personality disorder, we do look for a diagnosis of oppositional defiant disorder. So think of this as like, you know, more than just like a bad kid at school. They would have to meet the symptoms, time, duration, and it would have to interfere with at least 2 areas of daily functioning for it to be considered disordered. So you would have to have oppositional defiant disorder before the age of 15 to meet that criteria. However, are there people out there that get through and maybe should have been diagnosed with oppositional defiant disorder but weren't? Sure, that happens. So just keep that in mind. And does that mean that if somebody fell through the cracks somewhere that they couldn't get an antisocial personality disorder diagnosis? No, they still can. It's just more of a like a light shining when somebody has oppositional defiant disorder. If you're looking, you know, to if you're looking at them to see if they have psychopathy, you're more likely to see it with that oppositional defiant disorder. So it's just kind of like a precursor. So let's move on real quick. Is there any questions about anything with any of that? So I'm going to look and see. I'm not going to read all of these right now. I'm going to go back and read some of them, but I want to look just to see if there's anything with emojis or stars. So in that courtroom, I see one. There you go. See, Truth was paying attention. Truth, we have a joke. You just went to 13 by 12, Truth. How about that one? Look at you making a question. So in that courtroom, BK isn't the smartest person in the room. Oh, he has no control, and I bet it pisses him off. All right, 13 by 13, Truth. That was good. You're right. You're absolutely right. So just like at the doctor's office in the courtroom, he's not the smartest person. He's not the lawyer. But seriously, think about it, right? Could you imagine Ann Taylor, of all people, defending you if you're Bryan Kohberger? A lot of people are like, do you think he did that as like a way to be like, oh, look, like I'm not afraid of blondes and stuff? And I was like, no, absolutely not. She's court appointed, right? Court appointed. So he has a public defender. She's a public defender. So I don't think you get to pick out your public defender. So he was stuck with her, if you will. And she's working really hard for him. So, I hope she will write a book when it's all over. Oh, right? Could you imagine? Oh, yeah, right. She's court appointed. Thank you. All right, let's keep going. So with Patrick Bateman real quick. So we believe, and again, he's fictional, but we believe that fictionally that he would be considered a psychopath or antisocial personality disorder. So he was a Wall Street executive with a double life as a serial killer. Of course, this is fictional. He was emotionally detached, manipulative, and narcissistic. He had an obsession with image, status, and control, which I think that sounds a lot more like Kohberger than the charming type that we just saw with Ted Bundy. And then possible hallucinations or delusional thinking, which I do not think, or at least not that I know of, that Kohberger or Bundy had. And with hallucinations and delusions, just so people are aware, this could be schizophrenia. It could be signs of schizotypal personality. It could be anything in the movie. I don't know if they say it in the book. If they do, I think it was Lucy read the book. If you would tell me, that would be great. But I don't believe he gets like a diagnosis, if you will. So again, this is just based off of the things that we see in the movie. So here, if you had to look at his fictional traits, we would see psychopathy, malignant narcissism, and possible schizotypal delusional traits, which I was just saying before. So it might not be schizophrenia, but schizotypal, which is a personality disorder, and which is what I put in the very beginning. And part of the reason I did that was so that people understood the difference between the two. Let's see. I don't want to get anybody seasick. But I put it, I don't know. I thought it was right there. Okay, I did have the difference between, I do right here. Schizoid is emotional coldness, preference for solitude, and then schizotypal is odd beliefs, eccentric behavior, social anxiety, and paranoia, which we see a lot more of with Bates. All right, so last but not least, let's get to Kohberger. Okay, so let's see what Kohberger has to say. Not has to say, what I think. So here his speculative psychological profile. So again, I wrote speculative. He's accused of murdering 4 University of Idaho students in 2022. He's a PhD criminology student. He studied criminal psychology, which is a little bit different, right? So there's many different specializations you could take, whether you're in psychology or criminal justice. So he was interested in the criminal mind. He had Reddit posts asking criminals to describe their emotions It was actually not just pre and post crime. It was pre, during, and after the crime that he was asking about their emotions, which I thought was really interesting because think about it, you guys. I've never been in the situation, and I don't think any of you have either, right? But from what we know, you can probably speculate of what somebody's post crime thought process is. But to think that somebody that did this is just going to respond to your Reddit post and just be like, oh, especially if they weren't caught before. Like, I thought about it, and the only person that would really qualify to take this would be somebody who's already not qualified. You would be qualified if you did any crime, but the only people that I could really see putting themselves on the line to take this Reddit survey would be somebody who's already been convicted and done their sentence, because who's going to just write on there like, oh, by the way, before I KILLED this person, I felt that. You're not going to write that, especially if you haven't been caught. So, or if you're like, waiting trial, stuff like that, I would hope that people would know that your IP address could be found and things like that. So again, that right there was a huge red flag to me. I know I always talk about it, so I'll keep going on. we believe, or we know he's socially awkward. So he's been described as socially awkward, but also as arrogant and cold by some of the classmates. Okay. And even by classmates, not just ones that he's in class with as a doctorate student, but even as classmates from back in high school and things like that. So back in Pennsylvania, that also described him as arrogant and cold and awkward. He drove approximately 10 miles at night to the alleged crime scene. And okay, so let me just say this real quick. I wrote he stalked victims beforehand, and it says per affidavit. So I must have seen that somewhere, but we do know, so I wish I would have taken that out. We do know, so that nobody comes for me, the Kohbergers, I know that the state and the defense have both said that there was no stalking of the victims. However, I've said this time and time again, I believe that they're talking about in the sense of the law for Idaho and not in the sense of being surveilled. So do you believe that they were stalked in the sense of being surveilled? I think he watched them. I'm sure he, I don't know if you guys realize, I'm sure you realize this, but I don't know how many young people are on here tonight, but I know Corey's on here. He's young. How do you guys realize, like, even with like your Snapchat, every time, if you have Snapchat, every time your phone updates, I don't know, they could have gone back, because I had a student that was almost beaten to her death because when her Snapchat updated, this was like 4 or 5 years ago, when her Snapchat updated, her locations were off. But when it updated, it turned her location back on. Okay. Hi, Jenna. It turned her location back on. And because her location went back on, the people that were looking for her were able to find her. And they realized afterwards that that's how they found her. So I would just say to people, whether you have Snapchat or any of the other social media accounts, just be very careful. Sometimes we're like, oh, who cares? Like, it's just, so-and-so. But I know even with my kids with that Life 360, I hate it. I don't know how many of you are parents out there. And if you're a kid out there and you're watching, you would probably love to have me as a parent, because I really don't give a shit where you're at. Let me be honest. And my kids are grown. So that's also why I'm saying this. If they were like little, that would be different. But I have a 22-year-old daughter. Like, I don't need to know where she's at every moment of the day. I would like to believe that I raised her and my other daughter, that I raised them both with that I gave them the tools that they need to make proper choices as young adults, if that makes sense. So I don't need to know where they're at every minute of the day. And maybe this is also for my students. I do learn a lot from my students. And I learn from my students that, let's say I did force my kids to have, like, you have to have me on light. I don't know about you, but you'd be crazy to think that they couldn't just turn their location off, go where they're going that they don't want you to know, turn their location back on, all before you ever realize that it ever happened. So there's just so many different things that kids could do anyway to keep out of it. So instead, how crazy is this? I never brought it up to my kids. However, those bitches brought it up to me. And now they have me on 360. I'm like, what the fuck? Like, how does that happen? I don't want you to know where I'm at 24 hours a day. Like, it's none of your fucking business. But now they'll be like, oh, mom's 10 minutes away. And I'm like, bitch, like, why do you know where I'm at? Like, get off of my back. But again, like, I hate it. I hate that they know where I'm at 24 hours a day. That's all. That's all. Look, Corey's laughing because he knows it's true, right? And Corey, just like you, like, you're a really good person. I would assume that your parents would hope that you would just use the things. I feel like when you hover over your kids too much, it almost makes them feel out of control. Like, I would like to think that I gave you the tools that you need. And we have a rule in our family, and you guys should all have this in your family too, if you have kids someday or if you have kids now. But we have an X rule. So if my kids are ever in a situation that they need to get out of immediately, they'll send an X to my husband or I. And now that I'm exposing this to everybody out there, it's probably not going to be as, not that there's going to be millions of people watching this, but anyway, you could do this with your own family. So I am so dramatic, as many of you already know. So if I ever, and I haven't ever, and hopefully I never do, but if I received an X from you, from my daughters, if I have your phone number and I get an X, Corey, you better bet I'm calling up and I'm going to make up some story. I'm going to be crazy on the phone, loud enough so that whoever you're with can hear me in the background. Like you could hold your phone out and be like, listen to this crazy bitch. And I'm going to be like, where are you? You need to come home. I need you right now. Da, da, da. And I'll come up with a whole story. I'll look crazy for you. And you could just hang. I have no idea what the frig's happening, but I need to go because this bitch is crazy and she's coming for me, right? So, oh, you do have the extra role. Good job. That's awesome. And you as you should. And you should tell your kids too, right? No questions asked. Even if I get disappointed the next day because when I picked you up, you were somewhere that you're not allowed to be, please give me the X. I will hold myself together, at least till the next day. I will hold myself together. I will gladly come pick you and your friends up. We'll all come home. Then I'll beat your ass. And then, no, I'm just kidding. I would never do that. But I want you all to get home safely. And to me, if that means that I don't judge you to do that, then that's what we're going to do. So I don't judge. And my daughter's friends also know that they too can do the same for me. I'm just waiting for the one day that somebody does it, just that, like, now that I said it, I'm waiting. Corey, I'm going to get an X in the next 3 days. And Corey and his friends are all going to be laughing. He's going to be like, you want to see this crazy bitch? And he's going to put an X watch. Corey, if I get an X in the next 2 days, I ain't calling you back. I'm just letting you know. I'm just kidding. Of course I would. I'd rather be safe than sorry. Okay, so back to here real quick, you guys. So some speculative traits, if proven guilty, I believe that Kohberger has possible narcissistic personality traits. So things like superiority, I'm better than you, I'm better than me, I'm better than everybody. That's pretty much the vibe that everybody says that I feel has been universal about him, no matter who has said that they've known him. Also, his academic obsession. This is another big one for me that falls here. And now you could say, okay, those of you that know me, that I have an academic obsession. I went from high school to college, and then I never left. So I started college at 17. I graduated right before I turned 21, and then I went back for my master's, and I graduated with my master's at 23. So I went back for a specialization. But you might say too that I was just trying to prolong my childhood, if you will. I was 24 years old and I had a 63 credit master's in counseling psychology. Like, I didn't have a husband, I didn't have children. I just had this big ass degree and I was like, okay, now what do I do with it? So I was like, oh, let me go be a cocktail waitress. Oh yeah, that sounded right? But then I became, before I graduated, I did put my resume out there, and that's how I got to where Corey is. I'm not going to say what college it is. I might have said it before, but I won't throw us under the bus as of right now. But I've been there now for 20 years. I can't believe I've been a professor for 20 years, but I've been to many universities and colleges since then, but I still remain at this place that hired me at 24 years old. And I think that's crazy because now at 46, in a couple of years, I will have spent half of my life working for the same company. Isn't that crazy? But you could say back to this, that I'm obsessed with academics. In a way, I don't know that I would say I'm obsessed with academics. I would say that I came from an underprivileged background. We didn't really read books for fun. Books were usually read if you couldn't fall asleep. My mom would be like, go read a book. It'll put you to bed. So that's how books got put into our head, is that it's something that you did when you were trying to fall asleep and couldn't. So I had to change all of that in my thought process, right? And again, I enjoy learning. And I think that the more I learn, the more I can help other people, let me be honest. So you can say that I'm obsessed with learning, but in his sense, I see it in a different sense. I see it for him as a thing that he had to control. For me, it's not a thing that I control. If anything, if I'm going to be completely honest here, Corey, put on your earmuffs, but I could make a lot more money doing a lot of other things. I could do counseling, one-on-one therapy where I could be making $200 an hour, but I don't do that. And the reason I don't do that is because of the neighborhood I grew up in. And once I got that fancy degree, I went back to that neighborhood and was like, even to see me. He just said pretty messed up. And I refused to go to the places where they could afford to see me, help those people come back to and in the end, you wind up screwing yourself when you do that, because then I'm the only one that didn't make the money that I could have. But I would like to think that there's a bunch of Corys out there that I've helped over my years being a teacher and believing in these students. So I think that makes me different than Kohberger, who was very critical of his students and was very critical about their abilities and how they were thinking, and if they weren't thinking the same way as him. And I tell my students all the time, if we have a test and there's an answer like 2 + 2 = 4, there's no other way to come to that answer. But if I ask you a question and it's an opinion-based question, even if your opinion differs than mine, even if I disagree, if we were talking about the Eagles and Corey turned in the most offensive Eagles paper, I would still read it and he could still get an A in my class, just because I promise that I'm not going to judge you for your views. So you could have a different view than me and still get an A, and that's okay. I don't feel like that was the same for Kohberger. I feel like the students who didn't agree with him were more on like his shit list and got like he would say stuff and put it on their papers, they said. And it wasn't until after the crimes occurred that he stopped doing that. So for Kohberger, we have possible narcissistic traits, which I've said before. I think if anything, I honestly believe that he fits the narcissistic personality disorder, but it's speculative because I really shouldn't be diagnosing, especially on YouTube. And then possible schizoid or schizotopal traits. I don't believe he has schizotopal traits, but I do believe he has schizoid traits. So detachment, fixation on the inner world, and then potential antisocial traits. So planned violence and lack of remorse. I don't know if you guys remember, but I did an entire breakdown, me and Dr. Schultz, of his rap song. And a lot of you were there for that. I learned all about Deagle. I learned about Texas taught me about that. I learned all kinds of stuff that night. But if you could always go back and look at that as well. But when you look at that, you could see that not only can you say that he lacked remorse and stuff, but he literally tells you in his rap song that he's a criminal with no, or no, that was Tappa Talk where he said he was a criminal with no record. But in his song, he says, you might be evil, but I'm the devil. So that was his way of saying, like, go ahead, be evil. I'm the devil. Who's the devil? The top evil person, right? So it's almost like he always has to be the top, no matter what it is that he's doing. So let me just see if there's anything over here that I need to answer real quick. I'm just looking for anything with stars. Thank you guys so much for being here and supporting me. I really appreciate this. Okay. So let's go into to this table that I have here. So I have a little comparison table. I should upload this to my community post afterwards in case anybody wants to reference it later or use it or whatever. I'd be totally fine with that. But here we have the 3 people. So again, I remind everybody that one of these people are fictional. One, I have the 3 question marks here because Bryan Kohberger is alleged. So in my opinion, I have a feeling that in a year or 2, these are going to be 3 green checks, but that's just my opinion. So with Ted Bundy, this is antisocial right here. The middle is narcissistic personality. And then on the end, I put schizotopal and schizoid traits together because I see some of both in Patrick Bateman. So that's why I added schizotopal. But for Bryan Kohberger, I would say that I see schizoid more than anything of those 2. With the narcissism, all 3 of them are narcissistic, right? We just see that with Ted Bundy, he was strong. He had a strong narcissistic background. For Patrick Bateman, it was extreme. Everything from his facials that he does daily to, everything. Their business cards. Whoever had the thickest business card was the better one. The one guy comes in and he's like, yeah, look at mine. And he drops it down. It's raised lettering. And he's like, mine's even better. So he was extremely hyper focused on his status, which I think that part of that was for the movie role and to bring home the point. But we do know that Kohberger is extremely arrogant. And I don't even know why I have a question mark there, just from his Tappa Talks and from his rap song, and even from his stop where he was pulled over by that police officer, the female. I see arrogance and all of that just with my own eyes and ears and stuff like that. So I just put the question mark just to cover myself. And then Ted Bundy, we have strong evidence that he's a psychopath. For Patrick Bateman, he's fictional, but there's also strong evidence that he would have been a psychopath. And then for Bryan Kohberger, it's speculative, depending on whether he's guilty or not. What I then did was I simplified the DSM-5 TR with a visual guide that shows the personality, neurodevelopment, and related disorders, because the defense comes up with these other disorders, and I just wanted to make sure I put it out there. I'm not going to go over all these traits again, but I'll put it up there for a second so people can see. But again, it's just going over narcissistic personality traits. I can put this again in the community tab after, so that if anybody does want to go through and reference it for whatever reason, you can do so. But I put here, it's all about me. So you need constant praise and dismisses others' needs. So it's almost like, you know, they're special. They'll even exploit you if they need to in order to get ahead. Okay, because it's all about them. And that again was with the narcissistic. With the antisocial, I give you the core traits again. I also put in this one that I didn't have in the other one, that you have to be, or you must show signs of conduct disorder or oppositional defiant disorder before the age of 15. And that you're impulsive and aggressive, which we also know, lies, manipulates, breaks the rules and the laws, ignores others' rights. These are all literally things that I feel like classmates of Kohberger were reporting about him. But this is repeated violation of rules and people's rights with no remorse. I'm going to show you guys a picture after this. The thumbnail that I have for this live is the Do They See Me Now pictures that I had with all the different pictures of Kohberger where he looks different in all of them. And then over the center, I put a new picture of him and then a bunch of pictures all the way around. So it's a whole collage of new pictures that I got. And again, even with new pictures, I still can't find anywhere he looks the same. That says a lot to me. But I also found other pictures. There's a picture of him sitting with a bunch of females. I think that he was at, and I didn't want to bring this up in the live just because I didn't know for sure what it was called, but he's in a conference and he's the only male and he's sitting amongst a bunch of women and he's in the very front row and they take a picture and it's literally a group of women. The woman that's doing the workshop, and then he's in the very front just sitting there. There's another picture I have where it almost looks like group therapy. So I tried to like cut in so that you didn't really see everybody's faces, but I left enough to where you could see that it was him amongst a group of women again. So he put himself in these situations. And I'm wondering, why do you guys think that he would put himself in those situations? Could it be that maybe he was trying to figure out what women want? I don't know, how to speak to a woman. I don't know. Who knows? I also don't know what those two things were about, and I'd be interested to find out. Next, we have that schizoid. I put those traits here. For the clue, I put loner by choice. They're not distressed, just uninterested. Excuse me. So again, they're a loner by choice. They're not distressed. They're just uninterested. So that's a big one. And then I also put in here, so this was one that I didn't talk about before. The first part of this, I made these on different nights clearly because I added to the second part. But for this one, I added obsessive compulsive personality disorder. I believe he has traits of this. So when I saw that he was diagnosed with obsessive compulsive disorder and I heard about the story about his aunt saying she had to buy new pots and pans for when she cooked and I thought, okay, could he have, because really, I really did, you guys, I really did try to make a case for why he had autism and for why he had obsessive compulsive disorder. I don't know if you guys know the difference between obsessive compulsive disorder and obsessive compulsive personality disorder. So maybe I should tell you real quick so that people aren't confused about it. One, you develop as a result of anxiety. Okay. So if I have obsessive compulsive disorder, I have obsessions, which are thoughts, and then compulsions, which are the behaviors. The thing is that I'm so anxious that I continue to have that thought until I do the compulsion. So let's just say right now I was having the obsession that I had, and it's usually something that's related to anxiety. So for example, pick up my mouse twice and put it down. That would be an example. So it's usually just anything. There's no rhyme or reason. It's not like you have to take in a breath for 3. It's nothing like that. It's usually something that's repeated. You usually have a certain number that you'd repeat things. So like I just said with the mouse, if I did it twice, I would do other things twice. So you might go into the kitchen and shut the oven off twice. So you turn it on, shut it off, turn it on, shut it off. Same thing with the lights, turn it on, shut it off, turn it on, shut it off. But we usually see that the same number that we see this over and over and over again. So you wouldn't do the kitchen lights twice and the range 4 times. It's usually all the same. So whether it's 4, 2, whatever the case may be. I don't know if you guys know this, and there is zero research to look this up. It's pretty cool. Again, we think it's coincidental. We're not sure. But I don't know if anybody in the audience is listening, if you have obsessive compulsive disorder. But if you do, let me know how you feel about the number 6. And again, I want to do more research into that, but apparently there's something about the number 6 that people with obsessive compulsive disorder, they don't usually pick that number as a number that they like. And I really don't know why. It has to be coincidental as of this point until somebody studies it. I thought that it was pretty ironic when I looked into it, how many times that this was, I seen this with people with obsessive compulsive disorder. So I would love it if Dr. Mercado heard that so that I could see if he thought that it was a coincidence or if he thought that there was something behind it. But anyway, that'll be for a different day. When it comes to the personality disorder, obsessive compulsive personality disorder, the person's not having the obsessions and the compulsions because it's different. Then they're not doing it because of anxiety. So over here, we have perfectionism that interferes. That's the thing with any of these disorders, it has to interfere with at least 2 areas of daily functioning. If it only interfered with one area of daily functioning, so for example, this only happens when I go to school, well, then let's take school out of the picture and see if it goes away. So if you don't have the disorder and it's school related, you should be able to take school out of it or fix whatever it is, and then it should go away. When it interferes with more than one area of daily functioning, it's happening at work and school, or work, school, and your relationship. So it's happening in more than just one area. And that's how we know that it's stable across domains, if you will. You become preoccupied with rules, order, and control. So I think that this could get misconstrued for obsessive compulsive disorder. I don't know if anybody, I think I said this on Daniel's show and the Drunk Turkey show, but just in case anybody wasn't listening or didn't say it, when it comes to obsessive compulsive disorder, not everybody with obsessive compulsive disorder has the germaphobe type. I think that in society, we hear OCD and we think germaphobe, but you can be obsessive compulsive and not be the germaphobe type, okay? So with Kohberger, we have that one story by the aunt and her having, and that was after him becoming vegan. So I think people attributed it to obsessive compulsive disorder, but I don't know if you're a vegan out there. Would being a vegan without obsessive compulsive disorder, would that be enough for you to not want to eat on or have food cooked on pots that you had meat cooked on before? So in other words, what I'm saying is, could that have been less of a symptom of OCD and more of a symptom of him changing his diet and now being a vegan? And that just made me think of something in that case, which is what I think it was due to. Order and control, because in his eyes, that would be his new rules, his order, his control, almost like he would double down. If he said, I'm not eating on, those, I'm not eating if you cook from that pot or whatever, somebody like him would be very rigid, and it would be more afterwards, more because of the point rather than the point they were trying to make. So it's more like, well, now I said that I'm not going to eat from it. It's like stubbornness after. But again, this is going to be inflexible. There you go. So inflexible with morals and ethics, and rigid. That's what I was just saying, rigid and stubborn. So that's what I meant by, no, I'm not doing it. And again, this is very different than obsessive compulsive disorder. So I do think that people need to remember that. Also remember too, that when, it comes to obsessive compulsive personality disorder or any personality disorder, they start at birth and continue throughout your life, because with your personality, it grows. So it's often affected by your environment, the genetic component, we believe, for some of them, not all. And then there's some that, like, there's some people with antisocial that might have had a great upbringing. There's very few, but that could have had a good upbringing and still turned out antisocial. So what I'm saying here is that we do see that there is a genetic component and there's an environmental component for most cases. For obsessive compulsive personality, just personality disorder, you have a reluctance to get to delegate. So what do I mean by that? This person would want to do all of the things themselves, okay? This is another reason that other than the fact that if he had the ability to make friends with somebody in crime, he probably wouldn't have had to do this to begin with. But this goes to another reason why I don't think there was anybody else involved, that he did this himself. You would be reluctant to give up your power or control to somebody else and to trust somebody else with getting A, B, and C done. In his head, he's the only person that could do this in that amount of time. So, and again, whether that's true or not, in his head it is, and perception's reality, even when it's not real. So the clue here I have is rigid and perfectionist, but no true obsessions and compulsions. Again, remember, the obsessions and compulsions are to stop anxiety. And somebody with narcissistic or antisocial personality disorder, it's not as much the anxiety that they're worrying about. It's more about control and power. All right, I'm just going to check real quick to see what you guys are saying. I can't believe I still have people in here. That's crazy. So that's interesting. You always thought that it equaled germaphobe. I'm so glad that you heard that then, Lucy, because again, this is my whole thing. If I can just help clear up one or two things for people out there, then I feel like I've done my job and that I've helped others. So Lucy, I'm glad thank you for saying that. So most people, not just you, think that OCD equals germaphobe, and it doesn't. It's just a type of. So I would say this, if you've been diagnosed as a germaphobe, then you have OCD. But if you've been diagnosed with OCD, you don't necessarily have to be the germaphobe type. So I hope that makes sense. Okay. So again, if you're diagnosed as a germaphobe, you probably have OCD. But if you're diagnosed with OCD, it doesn't mean that you're the germaphobe type. That's just one of the types of OCD. So back to you real quick, and I hope I'm not boring people. If I am, I apologize. Obviously, there's still people that are listening, so hopefully I'm interesting somebody. But if anybody has any questions or comments, please feel free to put, like I said, stars or something, or an emojis or whatever, just so that I know to see it amongst the comments so that I can answer it or read it. Real quick, I put in here what the defense thinks that he has. They think he has autism and OCD. I've already gone over OCD pretty extensively, but I'm just going to show you what I put here because, again, I wanted to do the same. I wanted to put the same amount of energy into what the defense says he has as I did into what I think he's displaying. So one of the things, first of all, is that now we're going into a neurodevelopmental related disorder. So autism spectrum disorder, as we know, it's a spectrum. So you could be highly functioning or you could be not highly functioning, right? So you could need a lot of support. If he does have autism, the defense says that he would be on the side of the spectrum where he was very high functioning. So they believe, and these are some of the core features of autism: social communication difficulties, okay? Which you could say that he had communication difficulties, but could those communication difficulties been because of autism, or could they have been because he wasn't interested in having many relationships as far as like friends and stuff like that? And repetitive behaviors or routines. Again, this could also go to some of the personality disorders. Then we have narrow, intense interest. Also can fall under obsessive compulsive personality disorder. Sensory sensitivity. So now this is where we're going to see more of an autism spectrum disorder mainly. I don't think that we have evidence to say that he has sensory sensitivities. He did say that he had visual snow years ago, but we come to find out that that was self-diagnosed. And as far as the sensory sensitivities, he's created music. He's done kickboxing. He's done a whole slew of things that we could say that you would think would be affected if you had a sensory disorder. But again, I'm just putting this out here because this is what they say he has. And then symptoms present early in development. So that's an important one. Although people have described him as being arrogant and stuff like that, he wasn't diagnosed with autism from an early age. So there's some other mass murderers out there that we know have autism, but they've also been diagnosed with autism. And again, just so you know, if you have autism, you're more likely to be a victim of a crime than you are to be. So with any disorder, and this is coming from somebody who, just so you know, before anybody jumps down my throat, I do have ADHD, and I do fit criteria to be on the high functioning autism scale. So I'm not saying this by any means to down anybody, because again, you're more likely to be a victim. People with autism are not killers. They don't go out and hurt people. They very much have emotion. They just have a problem with communicating that emotion or picking up on others' emotion. And again, that would be more if, at different parts of the spectrum where you might fall. I'm very good at reading people at this point in my life, but some could say that this is another thing. He made it to 30, right? I'm at 36 now. So how much of this stuff that I do is learned behavior, and how much of it is something that feels natural? And could somebody, be able to do something like this because they have that little bit of social detachment? Would I be hyper-focused on what you guys were thinking if I didn't, right? So this all plays into how we act and react in life just in general. So just know that people with autism are not dangerous, okay? So I almost think it's offensive for them to say that he was dangerous and autistic. The clue here is social and sensory struggles with a strong need for sameness. So, and what I mean by that is that routines are everything. If you have somebody in your life that has ADHD, ADD, autism, even obsessive compulsive disorder, they all fall within this area of the brain. Even if you don't have a disorder, you guys, having a routine is healthy, right? So I would argue that it's healthy to have a routine, whether you have one of those disorders or not. So keep that in mind. With obsessive compulsive disorder, the core features, we have obsessions and compulsions. I've already told you the obsessions are the repeated, and this is the big part, they're unwanted thoughts. So the person doesn't want these thoughts. They want the thoughts to go away. Okay. And the reason they wind up doing the compulsion after a while is because they want the obsession to leave. So that's the whole thing here. It's anxiety provoking. So if they just do the compulsion, or the behavior rather, because the compulsions are the behaviors. If I just do the compulsion, or if I just do the behavior, my obsession about doing the behavior goes away. So if you guys could see this, I don't know if you guys remember like classical and operant conditioning and stuff like that from psychology, but you wind up classically conditioning, okay? You wind up classically conditioning this behavior, or operantly conditioning rather this behavior, because now you're rewarding anxiety by getting rid of it. And there's a lot of avoidance behavior with obsessive compulsive disorder. The clue here is I don't want to do this, but I have to. That would be an anxiety driven ritual. And again, I don't want anybody to take this as I don't want to do this, but I have to, meaning like a murder, because that's not what I mean. This is more like I don't want to get up from bed right now because I'm very comfortable, I'm warm, I'm exhausted, but I can't fall asleep because all I could think about is that I could have left the oven on, even though I didn't cook on the oven today, okay? I could have left the oven on, and I can't fall asleep until I go downstairs and I check the oven, and I not only check the oven, but I have to turn the oven on, off. Let's say 4 is mine, on, off, and then I could go back to bed. So imagine how intrusive obsessive compulsive disorder is for somebody. And again, a lot of this is to reduce that anxiety. And this is also why we often see avoidance behavior, because if I can avoid it altogether, then it might not bring anxiety. So be careful of those things if this is something for your own life. And then the developmental coordination disorder, this is I'm going over very quickly because this is just motor coordination lags behind age expectations, which I think is bullshit. So the core features for this, and I got all of this, you guys, just so you know, from the DSM-5 TR, which is the most up-to-date statistical manual that we have on disorders, okay? For developmental coordination disorder, it is a DSM diagnosis. The problem with it is that its core features are motor skill delays, so handwriting, tying shoes, clumsiness, so things like dropping things, impacts daily functioning. Again, you're going to see that with any disorder. It has to impact daily functioning, so school and play. Notice we have 2 things here, not just one. And then not due to neurological disorder, which I feel like, and correct me if I'm wrong, I feel like the defense alluded to the fact that this was also neurological disorder, which is why I put that on there so that people knew that this is not due to a neurological disorder. So the clue here is motor coordination lags behind age expectations. I think that we could say that this is pretty much baloney. Just looking at his kickboxing and all that other stuff, I'm assuming you have to be coordinated to be good at kickboxing, right? Over here, I have a quick comparison table. So after I did this, I put it all together. Let me just come out a little bit so you guys can see that a little bit better. Let me go in one more. All right, so we have a quick comparison table. So over here, what I did was, and again, I can share this with anybody that wants it. Email me if I forget to put it up on the community page. But a quick comparison, I put all of the disorders here. So everything, so the first 4 are the ones that I allegedly believe that he shows signs of. The last 3 are the ones that the defense says he's been diagnosed with. Maybe I should make them different colors so that people, and then put like a little key of what it means. But just so you know, I then put, so if you're listening to this and you can't see the screen right now, I have all the disorders in the one column. Then I have the social skill that goes with each disorder. I then put a list of emotions so that people can get an understanding of some of the emotions or some of the things that we see when it comes to emotions with that disorder. Then I put a behavior pattern because psychology is the science of thoughts and behaviors, right? So the emotions are part of that thought process, and then the behaviors are going to be part of your behavior pattern. So, and then I put, when does it start? So I think that's a big one. When does it start? So, and I should have said diagnosed here instead of start. So for the personality disorders, it doesn't get diagnosed till early adulthood, but again, it develops with your personality. And then the one that was different was the antisocial personality. You have to have signs of defiant disorder, oppositional defiant disorder, or any conduct disorder before the age of 15. Okay, and then OCD, other than that one, okay, so, and if you look at the difference here, the 4 that I think he has are ones that you would diagnose at 18 or older, so they're in early adulthood. The ones that the defense allege he has are all diagnosed in early childhood, okay? So early childhood, so keep that in mind. They're not usually things that you're diagnosed with at 30. So just keep that in mind. I also put here for all the different social skills. Example, I pretty much put all the things that we just talked about up top. And the only things that I put different here is about like flat affect. Let me just tell you what that is in case anybody does want to use this and they're not sure what that is. Your affect is your, when I look at you, I might be able to tell if you're sad or if you're happy or whatever the case may be by reading your facial expressions. Somebody with a flat affect, you don't really know what's going on. You don't know what's happening there. Are we happy? Are we sad? Are we anxious? Like, what are we feeling? Are we feeling frustrated? You just don't know because they're not really giving you any clue. They just have a completely flat emotional disposition, if you will. Okay. And then I tell you about the behavior patterns, whether it's repeated behaviors. Look, lies and aggression often go with antisocial. We saw a lot of his friends say that. But again, I'm going to keep going to see what else I have here because I still have more here and I want to wrap this up soon. Over here, I have antisocial personality disorder. I put the core traits. So disregard for others, deceit, impulsivity, and lack of remorse. And then what I did was I didn't know how people would want to see this. So again, if anybody wants this, just reach out to me. I can, I believe my email address is on my page, but just in case it isn't, it's jaimevona@gmail.com. So JAIME VONA, or somebody can throw it in there, but it's jaimevona@gmail.com. If anybody wants this, I would be happy to share it with you. And again, I put the 3 different people here that we talked about tonight. I put evidence or traits, if you will, that I see. And then I put, is it matched with antisocial personality disorder? So let's just give you an example. Kohberger allegedly, I should have wrote surveilled victims. And then unalives them without clear remorse, highly premeditated. So would this match somebody with antisocial? Yes, this would match likely traits of antisocial if proven guilty, but we're more controlled than impulsive, okay? And I agree with that. So these are more, for Kohberger, these would be more controlled than impulsive. For Bundy, as far as antisocial, he had repeated deception, manipulation, violent unalivings, and then he was charming yet remorseless. He was classic antisocial. Classic. He also met the serial killer profile. So when we look at the triad, okay. And then Bateman, cold, calculated killings, no empathy. He led a double life. He was a fictional character, but he was designed as a textbook case of antisocial. So I think that's important. If you want to look at a textbook case, so if I had to use the DSM to create a character, Bateman's character is a textbook case of antisocial personality disorder. I would say human-wise, though, Ted Bundy fits right under that. Okay. And then but for the narcissistic, I did the same thing. Again, I'll go back and I could put this, down here so that it's all on the same page. But I did the same thing where I give you the core traits. I give you the 3 people we talked about tonight. I give you the evidence. And then does this match with narcissism? So for Kohberger, I put possibly here, you guys. I think he's definitely, whether he did this or not, in my humble opinion, he 100% falls under narcissistic personality disorder. So to feel what it was like, they were his words. So feel what it's like to kill. Not that he wanted to feel what it was like. He wanted to know what others felt when they killed. He studied criminology, and he may have seen himself as intellectually superior. I think he did see himself. I had to put may have just for, ethical purposes. For Bundy, I have craved attention, believed he was too smart to be caught. I also think Bryan Kohberger thought he was too smart to be caught. But he also loved media attention, Bundy did. He had strong narcissistic elements. He was charming, manipulative, and grandiose. Think of grandiose, right? Grande is large. It's probably the only word in Spanish I know, unfortunately. But grandiose is large. This is a larger than life feeling. I feel like a God figure. And when you think about Kohberger, he tells us that you might be you might be evil, but I'm the devil. In that same sense, you might be great, but I'm the God. I'm the greatest. So I'm sure he also feels that way on the opposite side. And when a narcissist feels humiliated, or when they feel like they've been outed or humiliated, let's use that. When a narcissist feels humiliated, they feel very small, which would be the opposite of feeling grandiose, right? So one of the things I have to do if I'm a narcissist and I feel really small is to prove you wrong, that you're wrong about me. I am not this person that you say I am. So what better way to do that than to lose 130 pounds or to get your degrees and now you're in your doctorate degree? I mean, so again, and this would be if it was in an abnormal type way, right? So, or in a narcissistic way. So I do think that he felt he was superior. In the ultimate sense, right? By losing weight, he didn't feel that grandiosity again. I mean, and if he did, it was short-lived. By getting off of drugs, again, whether he felt that grandiosity or not, it was short-lived because he just keeps going back for us. It's the school thing. And the ultimate grandiosity, I guess, for him would be taking somebody's life, right? So what other way to show that you're grand or big than to be God himself and choose when somebody else's life ends? Think of it that way. So when you see that picture of him, like, it looks like he was just filled up, like his gas tank of narcissistic energy was just fueled. In that picture, he looks like he is on top of the world. And that's what you guys are looking at. He went from the opposite of feeling small to feeling big. And that's one thing I will share again about narcissism that people often mistake is that a narcissist is, I often say, think of narcissists as childlike, okay? So it's very childlike. When they usually have a very low self-esteem. So by doing something grand, it helps with their self-esteem. But that's about it. So I'm going to come back now. I still have a lot more over there. I'm not going to do any more because I don't want to lose people's attention. And I don't want to make this like a complete abnormal psychology. Oh, thank you. Please hit the like button for me. And if you're not subscribed, hi, Sunflower. If you're not subscribed, please subscribe, monetize. And the only way that my stuff gets out there is if other people view it and write something in the comments. Even if, can you guys do me a favor right now and just tell me where you're from? I would actually love to know that. I know that Truth is somewhere in the South. I know Texas is in Texas, I think. I think that's pretty safe to say. But what state are you guys from? That would be awesome for me to see after we're done the live as well. So hopefully you guys can share this or comment on it, like it, subscribe, do something just so that word can get out there. And, oh, you're from Maine. Awesome. Louisiana. We got another Southerner in here. Idaho. Oh, PKC. Hi. You're from, no idea. Is this PKC? Is this all over in Idaho? Like, is it all over your news still, or is it something that, or I guess the Valor case would be right now, I would assume. That one. I don't know why I haven't covered her. I think it's just, she annoys me. I don't know what it is. But me, like, I feel like I could do a video about her to show like some of these traits and stuff. And now that she's convicted, you know, I feel like I can do so more without getting blowback. But I don't know that I'd have a whole live on her just because she, I don't know, she gets under my skin. I don't know what it is. Virginia, I would love to see Australia. Is that what it said? Oh, me too. The only time I've talked to anyone outside of YouTube about this case really was at the hearing. Get out. Isn't that crazy? Corey's from New Jersey. Corey, you're giving up our location, Corey. What are you doing? I'm just kidding. So me too. Coca-Cola, me too. What, are you from Virginia, Jersey, Louisiana? Truth, you don't have to tell us what state you're in if you don't want to, but you are in the South, right? I'm like 90% sure. If she's still listening. Corey said no, Corey, everybody knows I'm in Philadelphia. I'm just kidding. I usually have my Philadelphia background on. So that was, you don't have to apologize. If anything, you're exposing yourself, not me. But nobody's coming for you, Corey. If I haven't come for you yet about the Eagles, nobody's coming from you. And then we have a Central LA. Corey, Coca-Cola, LA. Corey loves LA. Loves LA. Corey wants to get on a plane right now and go to LA, and I will help pay for it. We'll do a one-way there. He loves LA, you guys. Loves it. Cajun County. Oh, Corey, even better. I got it for you, Corey. I'll put up some funds for you. You want to get over to LA? I'm messing with them. We go back and forth about different, and he loves, what are they, the Chargers? I'm like, is that even a team? I don't know. I guess it could be worse. Texas, cover your ears. He could say that he's a Dallas fan, and then we might really have a problem. But the Chargers, I was like, Corey, come on. You have to be an Eagles fan. You're like way too close to Philadelphia. And then, oh, Truth is from Alabama, Birmingham, the most violent city per capita in the United States. Is that true? I didn't know that. Is that true? I do know that Philadelphia, in our abnormal psych textbook at school, they have in the depression chapter, for the past 4 or 5 years, Philadelphia has come in number 1 for the most depressed city in the country. So the people that I guess have been diagnosed per capita with depression, but the most violent city, I would have never thought, to be honest with you. And that I think that's what I love too about meeting so many people in here, is because I don't think people realize that. And again, this is coming from a highly educated woman. I don't think I realized just how different all of our environments still are in 2025. You know what I mean? So, oh, James, of course you're here, James. James, you're good. James is like, I want some extra credit. I hope she remembers me at the end of the semester. And she's like, I was there for you. James, I got you. You and Corey are good people. So why are we all so fascinated by this? What does this say about us? Great question. That's a great question. So Boone, I would say this. I think for everybody it differs, but I will say this. I think that for most people that you're going to find that there's something in their past that brought them here. So whether I mean, for some people, it could just be that, I don't know if you guys are old enough to remember the Nancy Grace days, but she used to be on so much in my house that at nighttime, my husband used to say goodnight to me and Nancy. He used to be like, good night, Nance, because she was always on. So, I mean, could part of it have been cultural, that it was just on in the background type thing? I don't know. But for me personally, one of my very best friends was murdered at 29. Four of them were hanging out, and they were all robbed at gunpoint. And this one friend used to always say to us, if anybody ever tries to, take my money, they're going to have to kill me to get it. And that's literally what happened. So everybody else gave up their money. Everybody else lived. This one friend, not only did he lose his life over this, but they got his money still. So, you know what I mean? And he's an only child. So now his parents lost their only child. He didn't have children yet, so they have no grandchildren. It was just a horrible thing. So when that happened, there were 4 kids that did this. Kids. There was a 15-year-old, a 16-year-old, a 17-year-old, and an 18-year-old. If Aunt Viv's still in here, Aunt Viv is his aunt. So that's how me and Aunt Viv got so close, the loss of my friend. But I instantly became a child of this friend's parents because that's all they had. So me and another friend, Kevin, we showed up there was 2 different trials. The first trial, they tried all 4 of them at the same time. And the first trial, there was a hung jury. And I have to be honest with you, I can see why. I don't think that some of the people in the jury wanted to put a 15-year-old behind bars for the rest of their life. And I think that's what they were assuming would have happened. I don't know, they should have all, I don't know. Yeah, maybe they should have all been tried together. I don't know. But I do know that in the second trial, and this is why I like to talk about some crimes, I learned a lot. That trial was like 3 weeks long, and we had to do it twice. So it was like, and that's like talking like working days. So we're talking like a month for both trials. And I'll just remember Kevin and he would pick me up every single day, and we would go and we would spend all of our time with the parents. And then through the holidays, we spend Christmas Eve with them every Christmas, so on and so forth. We became their second children. And then the story gets worse. 3 weeks ago, Kevin died out of nowhere. We still don't know what happened. He didn't do drugs. They think he might have had a heart attack or an aneurysm. But now I'm like, oh, my friend's mom has left. And that's my story. And I bet that if you ask everybody here, they all have a story, right? I don't know. That's my story. I'm an open book, though, so if you have any questions, you could ask. There's no reason to be sorry. It's life, right? No reason to be sorry. It's life. But 3 weeks ago, I don't know if anybody was like, I had to cancel my one live, and that was the day that I found out my friend died. And I just couldn't come on. I tried, and I couldn't do it. But that's why I had to cancel it. But I'm okay. Everything's going to be okay. He still tortures me in death. Trust me. I talk to him all the time. I'm like, you want to fucking torture me still? And he does. Both of them do. But it's okay. I love it. But now it is a lot of stress, though, because I do feel like I feel bad for his parents. It's like they lost the second child. So I feel like I have to like stay healthy, do good, da-da-da. I don't know. It's a lot. I'm so glad I have you guys. How about this? When we hang up, and just so you guys know, when we hang up, I sing, dance, and I process emotion very quickly. It's one of my superpowers. So right now I'm very passionate. So right now I might have like a crack in my voice, but in the other sense, when we hang up in 10 minutes, I could be laughing and skipping and dancing. And so, wait, I'm sorry for your loss. I would be afraid to live in Mexico and the United States as they have the most homicides compared to other countries around the world. Oh, imagine that. So, and then I have, you were the best professor I ever had. You are the only reason why I'm still in school. You gave me the strength when I was at my lowest. Wow. And that, my friends, is why I do this. Jenna, I didn't know that. Didn't know that. You're a great student. I didn't know that. But do you guys see how, you could give somebody strength when they're at their lowest. So just like I did that for Jenna, I would hope that everybody pays that forward to people. And Corey, as much as I break your balls, I love you to pieces. I really do. Even though Corey, I promise that was a promise. I'll help you with that ticket to LA if you want to go. One way though, only one way. You can't come back to New Jersey. You just got to go, and then that's it. But yeah, so I think you guys are great. Thank you so much for joining me tonight. You could have been anywhere tonight, and you were here with me, and that means more to me than anything in the world. I appreciate you, and I thank you, and hopefully I will see you on Monday. So I believe me and Dr. Schultz are going to pick up where we left off on Monday. Hopefully everything just goes as normal and nothing crazy happens. So hopefully I'll see you guys on Monday night at 7:30 Eastern. And put in the comments what you guys want to talk about. Do you guys want to talk about Stefan Stern stuff, or do you want to talk about Kohberger stuff? I'm having a feeling that I'm probably talking to a Kohberger group, so it's probably going to be. Please tell me what you would like to talk about, and I will pass it along, and we will talk about whatever that is. You guys get first dibs for being here. Thank you all for joining me tonight, and have a lovely, lovely weekend. I love you guys too. I love your show. I loved you guys for being here. Thank you so much. I appreciate you all. Good night. Please like, subscribe, and share if you enjoyed this so that I can continue to bring you content. Thank you so much.